Yo, what is up, Ryan? How you doing, man?
Good, man. You're just coming back from your bachelor party. You want to share any insights there?
Oh, it was legendary. All my boys were like, "Dude, this was a movie." And I think the biggest takeaway was a little bit of planning goes a long way. Yeah, if you read my LinkedIn post, one of the things that stuck with me is planning met with serendipity leads to legendary stories. For those of you who don't know, went to Cartagena, Colombia, group of 11 guys. We did all sorts of things, from jet skiing to motorcycles to ATV rides, rented a boat, went clubbing, danced with local Colombian women salsa, and I joined a street a street band. I asked one of my friends to buy me maracas, and I was on the street just banging my maracas around with the street performers. And then they asked me for money, and then I took my hat off. Actually, with my captain's hat. I took my hat off, and they're like, "How about money for me? Wasn't I good?" And they're like, "Ah, you got me." So it was amazing. I had a blast, man. Um, but anyways, what are we week episode 3 here of Diary of a Sales Engineer? We uh we had two great episodes. Today we're gonna be talking about what's the difference between an average SE, a good SE, and a great SE. I think this is an appropriate time, also given end of quarter. Hopefully, you're staying afloat. I saw you're double booking yourself. It's not the AE's fault this time. Tell me about that.
Oh man, look. The double bookings just tend to happen at the end of quarter. To all the other sales engineers and pre-sales folks that are out there, even if you're just getting started in this career, you've been in it a long time, you're gonna find out quickly, or you've already found out in your long career that end of quarter, things are not just crazy; they are hectic, chaotic, etc. My piece of advice there is just like always keep yourself available as best as you can towards the end of the quarter. Try to give yourself as much time as possible. I mean, don't get me wrong, life comes up. And you have other things and other priorities that do happen, but just try to be available as best you can. And then just be prepared that sometimes your notes, those notes might not get updated till after the quarter is over. Especially for those deals that aren't necessarily moving towards the end of Q2, they're going to be deals that move into Q3 or whatever quarter you're in. They'll be moving into the next one. Those deals you can wait a couple of days on, just to get like the cyclical cycle of the sales moving there. But anything that is pressing to close within a given quarter, obviously that's going to be your main focus in just driving the best possible opportunity of the deal closing. So the way that I always look at it is, especially from my standpoint, is if I do get double booked, okay, which call needs to have higher priority, and just taking a look at that quickly. All right, one call has a shot at driving revenue this quarter, the other one has a shot at driving revenue the next quarter. All right, well, the call that it's more important for me to be on is the one that has an impact towards this quarter. Meaning maybe I'll just let my rep take that call for the other one alone, or find somebody else or another resource to take that other call. So it's really just about prioritizing. That's the way it pretty much goes for your entire sales engineering career, is always identifying the highest priority items and picking and choosing what those are. You have an RFP due a few days away. All right, those notes again become secondary priority to getting that RFP in. You have a deal where revenue has a shot at closing. Usually the other things just start falling underneath for the priority. So just really get used to that prioritization piece. Don't try to get too frustrated as you get double booked too. It's just part of the game. But just be open and transparent with your reps. Hey, guess what? I'm on a call. Revenue has a shot at closing. They'll be understanding of that too, and realize maybe if the call does need to be postponed, we can postpone that call till after the quarter. But just be open with your whole team. I mean, they know those things. But yeah, my calendar this week has been absolutely crazy. But it's always fun too. End of quarter is always a good time, especially as you're watching some of those deals start to trickle in. Really exciting time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there that we can actually dissect as far as differentiating between the average, the good, and the great SE. I really want to pick on that part of, when you are double booked, how you deal with passing that information off to your reps, because sometimes your reps are, leaning on you to be there. So if you could just, pass some advice of how'd you have that conversation with your reps when you were double booked? What was it that you talked to them about, and pretty much were like, give me the reason why I'm picking call A over call B.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I'm a big proponent of direct communication between your reps. So establishing a good line of communication between you and all your reps starts off one on a personal and professional level. You need to get to know your reps on a professional basis, how what their cadence looks like towards deals, how they're going to react towards different things. Get to know them on a personal level. So, the reps that I already have a really good cadence with, I can just shoot them a quick Slack message, say, hey, look, I'm on another call. This is where I need to be at today. They'll be really receptive of that and say, yeah, no worries, I got it, or I'll move it. So by having that direct line of communication, and I would say that that is really a skill set of not an average SE, but a good to great SE, is being able to manage those relationships across your reps, and especially knowing how your reps would react. Maybe if I have a shakier relationship with a rep, I might want to actually pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I just want to let you know, just so that way they feel really good about what decision is being made here, why it's being made. But usually just a quick message will be able to resolve that ever so quickly. I don't like the idea of having to get management involved. The only time management should really get involved is if you really need them there. And again, to me, that's more of a skill set of like your average rep. If you can't navigate those waters yourself, you have to bring in somebody else. Don't get me wrong, some situations will happen on a case by case basis, but most of the time you should be able to just open conversation with your rep. Hey, here's where I need to be. I hope you understand, and they should understand that. Now, if you have two conflicting deals where revenue has to be generated and you need to be on both of them and you can't find backup, all right, in that case, we probably need to get all three reps into a call and say, look, here's the deal. Can either one of you possibly move this call so that way I can be present on there with both of you? And then the reps will work together too, because they should have an existing relationship as well. So I do think that it's really important. And to me, that's really a skill set of an SE that's going from average to good to great. And the great SEs will know how to navigate those relationships and be able to just send a message. Hey, here's where I need to be. No worries, Ryan. We'll get you on the next call. I'll move it around. And they'll be understanding of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I really like the part of not involving management. I think being able to fight your own battles shows you have matured as an SC to be able to stand up for yourself and be like, hey, this is why I am making this decision, and this is why it's important, and why you should trust in that decision instead of having to go, hey, my rep is asking me to do this. I don't feel comfortable. Can you step in and, as the manager and tell them? There are times where that absolutely needs to be possible, but if it's between you and your rep, it stays between you and your rep. That rapport building, that trust, having that hard conversation is definitely something of a good to great SC that is very valuable and is uncomfortable at first. I will admit, like when I was in uncomfortable situations early on in my career and I didn't feel confident in my abilities and in my rationale, I would go to my manager and have them fight my battles. And that definitely was early on. I think it's an average SC. It's a place we all start, but we should all drive towards fighting our own battles, being able to defend our decisions. And that's a great call out of only bringing in your manager when it's like absolutely necessary, because you don't want to pull that card too often. It's almost like the boy who cried wolf. It's, anytime my rep will think, hey, anytime I ask Samir to do something that's a little uncomfortable, he's gonna bring in his manager, and it's
Yeah.
gonna cause a whole thing, and that means I don't want to work with them as much. That means I'm as an SE, I'm not going to be as many deals, and it's just kind of a losing proposition at that point.
You have to remember too, just as SEs will talk about reps together, AEs are going to talk about SEs together. And so if you're the SE that's always looping in your manager anytime you feel a little bit uncomfortable, guess what? They're going to talk about that. And then when they get assigned you as a sales engineer, their face might go from being excited to be like, oh man, okay, I know what I have to deal with here. So you want to make sure that you have those positive relationships where when an AE does get assigned to you, they're fired up and excited to work with you. It's why I think it's critically important, especially as new people start at the company, you really establish those like quick virtual cups of coffee. You get to know them a bit on a personal and professional level. So that way there is a basis of like trust already established, and then they're excited to work together. I mean, look, the two of you have to work in harmony to drive towards positive revenue. And if you already have some friction starting together, it's not going to be a good situation for either one of you. So you have to understand both people want to work towards the same goal of winning the deal. So figure out how is it that you two are going to work together and make sure that you have that open line of communication. Look, I'll tell you too, early on in my career, anytime I felt uncomfortable, I'd loop in my manager. Hey, look, here's what it needs to be done. Can you help me out or just provide some support? I'm going to send a message in here just in case they respond back. Will you just chime in? But then you're always looping in your manager towards things like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't have as much autonomy. So I do think it's just a nice skill set to have, especially too, like from SE management perspective. They don't want to have to micromanage like that. So if you can handle those one-off situations and everybody's trusting that you're making the right decisions and prioritizing correctly, that's really the trust that you earn the more that you're doing in your career, etc.
And that also leads you to being given more responsibility. You know, you've proven that you can be autonomous, and because of that, you're going to be given the bigger, more high impact tasks, more opportunity to shine, and that really gets you from that good to great section is building that trust with not only your reps but also your manager and trusting that you can make the right choice. I think some other things. So if we were to break just down that area, you know, the average SC would anytime they run into something that's a little uncomfortable, they'll loop in their manager and try to have their manager, you know, fight that battle. The good SC will start to have those tough conversations and maybe be the one driving it, but their manager's kind of still behind the scenes, or you know, they have a three-way Slack channel between the manager and the rep and them, and they're still the manager's kind of still there in the shadow. And I think the great SC is able to go and run those conversations on their own. The manager knows that that SC is able to take care of any bumps in the road, and anytime that they are looped in, that means there's something actually big and serious that's kind of above what the SC can actually do from a positive impact to the business. Would there be anything, like if you were to break it down in those three sections, how would anything to add?
The only thing I would add is like this idea or concept of when to loop in your manager, right? Like I would say like don't be afraid to loop in your manager. Like when you need your manager, that's exactly what they're there for. So don't be afraid to have open communication with your manager too. Perfect example of when to loop in your manager is something like this. You get on a call with a prospect, you realize that it's not going to be a good fit. You want to DQ them because you're like, hey, this just isn't going to work for us. But the rep's really pushing on you to continue moving forward, even though you know it's not going to result in a close one deal or could just result in a very bad deal for the organization. That's a really good time to talk to your manager and say, hey, here's what I heard on the first call. Here's why I don't believe we should be moving forward. If there is a problem, that's when we should have the SE manager, the AE, and the manager of the sales rep to all get on one call, talk about what we heard, why we want to possibly disqualify a deal. That's a really good time where it's not just like calling in your manager because you feel uncomfortable. It's calling in your manager because you don't want to waste everybody's time and just making sure that it is going to be a good fit for the business. So don't be afraid to do those things, because I also think that's a really good skill of an SE too, that knows exactly when to pull in their manager and say, hey, I would really like some support here. And having your technical support backing me up should really ensure that the direct sellers know that this probably isn't something that we need to pursue.
That is an excellent point. I think great SEs know when they need to call in backup in order to ensure the most optimal business outcome for the whole company. So it's a great addition. I guess some like
Uh,
other, yeah, go for it.
I think, you know, on the point of just like the manager stuff, like it's good. It's, you know, like I said, there's a lot of good skill sets to be focused in on there. I think, you know, for today's sake, like the one thing I really would like to hone in on is the idea of average, good, great SE as it relates to demo skills, as I think that's probably like the most impactful thing to really talk about here. In my opinion, like average SE skill set when it comes to demoing product is this idea of a feature function demo. Point, click, talk,
Yep.
point, click, talk, point, click, talk. That's fine. And that's a good place to be at as you're getting started as a sales engineer in your career, or even at a brand new company as you're getting comfortable with the product. Now, the way to upskill yourself into that good SE is when you're doing the pointing and clicking, one, you're limiting the points and clicks. Cannot tell you how impactful it is to just reduce the number of clicks that you have. Too many clicks, you're already losing somebody on the call. Too much mouse movement, they're already getting lost in the mouse movement. It's a problem
Yeah.
I had early on in my career, was just jiggling the mouse all around. So limiting that mouse movement is definitely a critical piece of a good sales engineer. Now, what a good sales engineer can also do is start talking about the value that the product has. When it comes to value, there's different levels of value. I like to say there's like level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. How do you actually upskill the level or value propositions that you're having within a sales call? Now, when it comes to a great or extraordinary sales engineer, it's the ability to do some storytelling with the value. What have your customers seen in your personal career? How can you take personal experiences, tell the story, and relate it back to the value or the business objectives that your prospect has? This is really critical to becoming a great sales engineer. How can you loop and tie all things together? Good SE will just come on and say, okay, here it is. Here's the feature. Here's the function. Here's the value. What value is it though? Does it relate back to the business objective? If you can tie it back to the business objective, that's now where we're really moving into like the great idea of a sales engineer.
Yeah, and to kind of add to that, that one, the mouse jiggle, that one takes very conscious effort to stop doing. I actually like today I was catching myself doing that, and I was like, I need to just take my hands off the mouse and off the keyboard and start doing something with my hands while I'm demoing, so that I just stop moving it. And I think the next piece of that customer story, when you start talking customer stories during the demo, you don't need to talk about the feature function explicitly because you are defining that, hey, this customer was able to get this value and they're seeing what's on the screen. And so they're kind of connecting those dots. And now they're actually imagining, oh, wow, actually that company is very similar to my company. I can actually see how that could relate to what my problems are and what my uh, goals as a business are, and how this product can actually achieve those goals. So once you can get an understanding of your product, then you understand the value, and then you understand the customers who have actually achieved that value. It's kind of the pinnacle of that portion of the demonstration. Uh, I think the next place where we should head,
Actually, I want to chime in here. Like, there's
yeah,
something here that is actually something that any SE can do. Something I think that got lost, at least in the beginning of my career, when it came to customer stories, was this idea that I had to say the customer's name. So it had to be all of our referenceable customer stories that are out there from a marketing standpoint. As a sales engineer, you don't always have to say the customer's name. You can just say, oh, yeah, I was working with a customer in the blank space and we did X for them. You don't always have to use the same story that they can go to your website and find. You can weave in the stories yourself without actually referencing the customer name and tell the story. Tell the story about why they chose your solution. Talk about what their process looked like. Oh, you know what? I was on a call with one of our customers. They told me they had the same challenge as you. They are in X vertical, and we saw for them Y results when the product got up and running. I think that is such a great skill set to deploy. It was definitely lost on me for a very long time in my SE career. I thought you had to use the stories online. You don't. You can just use the stories that you want to tell. You can just mask the story without actually saying the customer name. And I think that's a really, really nice thing to actually weave
yeah,
into a call because it feels very personal.
100%. 100%. You don't need to have all of the intricate details. You just need to understand what's the business value behind that story. And people will still follow along. I was gonna say, kind of the next piece of this is from the like objection handling perspective. There we are always getting at, hey, can your product do XYZ? Or, oh, your competitor can do this. How do you guys address that? If we were to break down objection handling and that can your product do XYZ into those three categories, I can start, the average kind of SC when an objection comes up, they get a little hesitant and it might be a little less confident or start to shy away and feel a little bit uneasy. Oh, I'll take that down and I'll check back with you. Yes, there are times when absolutely you have to go and double check, but if you're giving that answer over and over again throughout the call, it's going to just diminish the confidence. You start becoming a good SC once you are able to understand the objection, you kind of dig a little bit deeper and give a confident response of, oh, I've actually heard this one before. I know how to handle it, know what to say, and I can say it with confidence and they believe me. And then the great SEs start to almost flip it back on the prospect. You kind of do a little judo move where it's, hey, I understand that, makes a lot of sense. Help me understand why this is so important to you. And oftentimes I've asked questions like that and gotten the response, well, I was actually just curious if you guys could do it. It really means nothing to me. I was just, I saw it, I got a question, it popped up. And other times it's like, well, actually, we got burned by a vendor previously because they told us that they could do XYZ, and when we implemented them, it failed. So being able to take that objection, understand the why behind the why,
Mm-hmm.
and really get into that and then answer it, I think is a true hallmark of that great to exceptional SE.
You know what? Actually, I think this could be a fun idea. We'll try this for the very first time, Samir.
Okay.
I'm going to spitball an idea here for the podcast.
All
Let's
right,
give
let's
an
do it.
example of this. All right. Let's role play this out. I'm going to be like a tire shop. All right. Because I'm thinking about this situation where I was moving out of Denver and I had a nail in my tire. And so I had
Okay.
to call around and make sure that I could get my tire fixed that day. So I want you to role play and pretend like you're calling me at the tire shop and say, "Hey, can you change my tire?"
All right.
And I'm going to give the average, the good, and probably the great here. We're going to just try this out today. Okay, I
All
like
right.
it. The phone's on. All right, perfect.
Hello?
Hey, Samir. Yeah, this is Ryan at Tires Company Incorporated.
Hey, yeah, I got a nail in my tire, and I was wondering if you guys had any availability. I need to get it out right now today.
Yeah, we have some availability today at 4 o'clock. What tires do you have?
I don't really know what kind of tires I got. I just know there's a nail in it, and I need it out.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we specialize in tires, so why don't you just swing on by, and we have somebody here that should be able to fix your tire.
So
All right. So there, I think, is like a good response, right? Is like this idea of I'm telling you that what we serve or what our product does, we can do. The issue there is I don't really know what the challenge is. I know you have a nail in your tire. I know that you want to get your tire fixed today. I said, hey, we could do it later on today. But I still don't even know what tire you need, what size of your tires, etc. Like I have to drill in and really find that information. What a good SE would do is say something like, "Hey, Samir, you know what? I see you're calling today. You have a nail in your tire. Can I ask you, like, when do you need to be back on the road by?" Samir says, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually moving today. I got to be back at my house by noon." And then Ryan comes back and says, "Hey, well, that's great. I actually have somebody that's available today at 10 a.m. Would that work for you? We can get you with a new tire on the road." Perfect. That's a pretty good SE response there. What a great SE will do is not only ask the question about what do you need the tire for, when do you need it by, but we're going to drill into the specifics. Hey, what sort of tires do you need? All right, we have to have 20-inch tires or 22-inch tires. I'm not even really sure the size of a tire, to be honest with you, but and then I'm going to find out what type of brand of tires you need. Do I have that brand of tires in stock? Because what I learned as a part of the tire buying process is all four of your tires have to be the same. You can't just go buy
Yep.
one tire and the other three can't match. Okay, so I got to understand all that. And when I give it back to you, I got to be able to tie it back and say, all right, Samir, that's great. I actually have somebody that's available today at 10 a.m. So we should be able to get you out of here and back on the road by 12 p.m. I have the same tire that you need in stock. It's ready to go. And what I'll tell you is our staff is so good. I actually had a customer come in a week ago. They had the exact same problem as you. We got them back on the road in 30 minutes. Would that work for you? And if that was possible, would that be awesome when we see you today at 10?
100%. I'll be there. I think another thing I would add to that is in this tire example, I don't know what tires I have on my car. But as a tire salesman, I do know that there's an easy way to find out. Hey, Samir, what's your tire? Oh, I'm not sure. You know what? Why don't you go outside, take a look. On the rim of your tire, it's going to say a letter and a couple numbers. Can you go ahead and just go ahead and read that to me, or snap a photo and send it over, making it really easy for them to describe the problem and then guiding them to helping you diagnose exactly what they need. And so that great SC knows, hey, these are the typical things that come up when I'm asking these questions, these qualifying questions, people don't know what they don't know. And so guiding them to help them find the answer is also something that a great SE is able to do. Oh, what's the volume of stuff? Oh, I don't know. Oh, you can check in your ERP system to see how much you guys are doing or anything like that. Understanding how you can help them find the answers to the questions that you need.
That's a cool one too, because I think the tire example actually relates a lot to technology sales. Like a great example of this is finding out what version of technology are they on today. When it comes to integrations, that's really important. As an SE, can you tell them or guide them when they say, I don't know what version we're on? Typically, as an SE, you're going to ask that question. How often do you think you're getting a response to what version of the software you're on? Unless you're talking to the IT resource, good luck. They won't know. But you can say, hey, what I would suggest is either you reach out to one of your IT resources, they should know, or if you go into your system, you look under system settings, it should probably be listed right there. It will usually say like version 18.2 2024. And by doing that, they can go quickly get the information for you. Oh, wow, Ryan, you didn't even know my system. It's not under system settings. It's under system settings information, but you were really close, man. That was awesome. I already found it. I got the information back to you. So the tire example, good example of like technology sales of why real world sort of situations come up here and why we need to understand the information that we're actually asking for.
Yeah, that was a great example. Good, good. Great job. Look at that brain going. Friday
I'm thinking
evening.
about tires because I'm thinking about tires. One, because I got the flat in my tire on the day I was moving, which honestly was like one of the worst things that could happen to you, right? I got to go pick up my U-Haul. I got to move out of my apartment. But I will say, like, the sales engineer came out that day. It was all about problem solving. And that's what I was doing. First thing I did, okay, what place is open? Start calling them. Hey, can you help me out, right? And now I'm doing some sales tactics where I'm just like struggling. Hey, I have a tire, I have a nail in my tire. I really need some help today. Can you get me in? Well, Ryan, we don't have an appointment till tomorrow. I would really appreciate if you could get me in today because I got to be on the road by noon, right? So I'm selling why I need to come in and actually get the tire. But I'm also thinking about tires just because of the Shane Gillis show on Netflix. So I don't know. Tires are top of mind today.
No, but that's an excellent point. I think from that problem solving perspective, as SEs, we're always gonna run into unique situations that seem to like, dumbfound us when we first hear them, and we have to go into that problem solving mode. And if we break that down, an average SC might be like, I've never really heard of that. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe we should just like move on from it. I think a good SE will attempt. We'll start thinking outside the box. This kind of mixes the good and the great. And then you start thinking of, hey, what are ways we can achieve the goal that is not straight path? Maybe instead of going through the ERP system, we go through a subsidiary and it eventually gets there. How do I reframe the problem in order to actually achieve the goal in a way that might not be as obvious? And I think great SCs really think about, I mean, as cliche it is thinking outside the box of how do we, this is the end goal. This is where we are. The middle is a black box. How am I going to design that black box in order to achieve the goal? And so that, like, even your tire example of you, I mean, I can assume because you've moved, you got that tire, you got that nail fixed, got it removed, was back on the road, and started driving across the country.
Yeah, we did. And there's something you said there too that just made this jump out to me. But like something that I hear from average sales engineers, or even just sales professionals in general, are this idea of weak language, or what I would deem as weak language. You ever been on a call, Samir, and somebody says, I think we can, we might be able to. If I'm the buyer and I hear, I think, I might, it tells me you can't.
Yeah.
Like, even though you might be able to actually do that thing, the second you say, I think, or I might, for me as a buyer, it becomes, I can't in my head. Okay, so in your head, you're thinking, oh, I said I might. They'll feel pretty good about that. I'm telling you right now, that sort of language you have to avoid in sales because it sends the complete wrong message.
Yeah.
If you don't know something, just say, I don't know. Let me double check on that. There's actually one way I do like to phrase this up sometimes when I don't know something, but I'm pretty confident. I'll say like, you know what? I'm about 90% confident that we can do that, but let me just follow up with our team so I get you a 100% answer. I don't like giving 90% answers. So that way they get the impression that we probably can, but I'm going to double check and confirm that we actually can versus saying something like, we should, we might, we can, I think. It's, you have to deliver the strong language in there to make somebody feel really comfortable. Good, great SEs are doing those types of things. They're avoiding the weak language on a sales call.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Your language really matters. The words that you choose really matter. And it might seem little, but one word can make a huge difference. That I might be able to do it versus, yeah, we can do it. Huge difference. Huge difference.
Imagine the tire situation, right? I'm calling around. I need to get my tire fixed that day, that moment. And I talk to the first place and they say, I think I can get your tire changed today. And I call the next place. They say, I can get your tire changed today. Which one am I going with?
Easy choice. Easy choice. Oh man. That must have been a nightmare, bro. I'm sorry. Moving's already stressful enough. And you got a nail in your tire.
Oh, I'll tell you too. The only reason why I found out was because it was early in the morning and I just wanted to enjoy some music. I rolled down the window and next thing I know, I'm hearing this noise
Weird.
over and over. And I'm like, there is no way on the day I'm moving that this is happening to me. But again, frustration kicked in first, foremost, right? Obviously, I'm not happy. I'm not happy there's a nail in my tire. That's first. Second piece goes, all right, we have a big issue. It's got to get solved. How can I solve it? And how can I get on the road today and still move out and do all the things that I have to do? I don't want to pay any fees to my place or pay for an extra day because that's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be super expensive. So, it does kick in. And I would just say from the standpoint of an SE perspective, wherever you think that you're at today, always strive to just continue to improve. Nobody gets to being a great SE day one on the job.
Yeah.
It's always evolving, always changing. I think doing something like listening to a podcast like this is a great way of just learning more tips and tricks around being a better SE, and always strive to just keep on pushing the bounds. I always find that when I talk to other sales engineers, my first goal is just, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing it? I want to learn from you. And if you can just be a sponge in every situation, you'll watch your career will continue to grow and you'll get out of some of those other habits. But you'll have some great SEs along the way. We'll actually teach you some things. Like I remember the day my manager said, Ryan, if you keep moving that mouse, it's going to be a big, big problem. And I was like, I can't believe I've been doing that. But I had no idea that I was even doing it. It was just numb to me. I had to have somebody actually point it out.
I think that's an excellent point. The good and the great SEs are always striving for feedback. After every demo that I've done, if there is someone else on my team on that demo, I'm like, hey, any feedback? What went well? What went bad? Like this morning I had a demo and I kind of fumbled. My CRO was on the call, and after the call, we debriefed. I was supposed to talk about something else, and I talked 45 minutes about my demo and where I fumbled, where I could make it better. We walked through it together, and next time I go through that, I know how I'm going to improve. I know what I'm going to be thinking about. So asking for feedback, I really, really will take you from that average to the good to the great. I think every time that I've been on a demo with you, Ryan, after the call, hey, what's your feedback?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I don't want to hear what I did to it. Where did I mess up? Where could I do it better? Hey, I tried this new thing. How did it land for you? Ryan, that was actually really bad. We shouldn't.
I remember specific feedback you gave me at one point in time. You'd reached out to me after one of the demos we were on together. And first thing you told me was there was some filler word I was using for the day.
Yeah.
Okay, gotta avoid that. I don't know what it was,
Can't remember, but I do
but that seems to always happen. There will always be a new filler word that pops up. Recently, I want to say one of the ones for me is sophisticated. I'm always oh, it's so sophisticated. I hate, and I do that. It's happened before in my career too. That's become a filler word. It's re-become a filler word for me. I'm aware of it right now. But you had actually told me this advice. I was demoing our mobile app, and instead of saying pinch to zoom, I was saying zoom to pinch. And afterwards, you're like, that was crazy, man. It's the backwards. I'm like, oh, wow. I've just been saying that wrong for the past 10 calls that I'm on, but I just got lost in it. It's okay. It's going to happen. But yeah, use the people around you, especially if you have other great SEs. Reach out and say, hey, would you mind just taking a look at this 10-minute call snippet? I would just like some feedback here. I always like the idea of reviewing game film or just demo film with your other SEs. I always think it's a good way to upskill because there's going to be filler words that no matter how many times you listen to a call by yourself, you're just not going to pick up on.
Yeah.
So it's good to have somebody else's eyes on it.
My filler word for a long time was It was just like, no, 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 like, and I was like, I didn't even realize I was saying it until I listened to a callback and someone told me, it's like, you say a lot, and then I listened and I couldn't unhear it. So those filler words definitely rotate. It's better than the ahs and the ums, but is...
It is. But you find ways to replace the ahs and the ums with other things.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say one of my filler words at one point was always, and then this, and then this, and then this, which is like the worst storytelling you could ever do. Because as soon as you keep doing and this, people are just immediately bored. Like, oh my God, how many more and this are we going to do? So try to identify what those filler words are, get rid of them as best you can. They're not ever going to go away. You could try as hard as you want. You could be the best sales engineer in the world. Odds are you're going to have filler words, unless you're the most eloquent speaker in the entire world. But you're going to get asked objections that you've never heard in different ways that you've never heard them before. You're going to get caught up in some of those filler words.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just try to continue to get better. That's it. It's all you can do.
Absolutely. I think the flip side of asking for feedback is giving feedback too. I think the good and the great SEs are also very willing to give feedback, very willing to watch their teammates' game clip. Like, there have been so many times where I've watched your demos and be like, oh, I actually really like the way he talks about this one particular part of the product. I think one of the things I stole from you was, I am your technical tour guide, and I, to this day, will use that when I'm talking to non-technical folks, because it's like, what does a sales engineer do? We are your technical tour guide, and I'll lean into that as I'm going through the whole process. So I think the good and the great...
Hand up. I stole that. I stole that from somebody else. Jason Denise, shout out. I stole that from you. But it's such a great joke, and it does really describe what a sales engineer is and does. I say it on all my calls. But I cannot admit to starting that. I picked that up from somebody else because I watched one of their calls and I was like, wow, I love the way that you say and describe what we do. Yeah. And then I took it and made part of it my own. And that's what you have to do. Take something you like from somebody else, the way they say it, make it your own. It's cool. What is it called, Samir? Imitations, flattery, or something along those lines.
Imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah, and so that's what it is. It's good. You pick up on other things that you like from other people. Just put them in your own words. Yeah. You don't have to copy it word for word because the way somebody else says something won't fit.
Yeah, I think I started saying, like, I'm your technical tour guide. Keep your hands and feet inside your office chair as we go through this demo. Try to make it lighthearted. People are there. Sometimes these guys are on back-to-back demos. You get a chuckle out of them. It keeps it light, keeps it loose. I think another thing that like good and great SEs do is they have the ability to inject some humor, inject their personality into the overall demo flow of, hey, this is me, this is what I think is funny, this is my personality coming out. You hear a demo from me versus you hear a demo from Ryan of the same product, you're gonna get a similar experience, but you're gonna see our personalities coming through.
I think that's one of the cool things about sales engineering is you can really interject your own personality. The one thing I'll caution there is know who your audience is. I love to tell jokes on calls and I love to keep it lighthearted, but you're going to work with some really serious buyers at times. I'm telling you right now, those jokes will not land and it will be distracting from the call. Yeah. So you have to understand who the personality is, even during your KT with your rep. It's a fair question to say, what's the personality of the buyer? They fun, they lighthearted. So that way I know when I go into the call, how I can actually act on the call. And I might even get the sense right away in 60 seconds, hey, this is gonna be a pretty serious call. Yeah. Let's just keep it really serious because that's the tone that the buyer wants to be at. Meet their tone. But if they're looking to have some fun on the call, have some fun on the call. Be yourself, tell some jokes. People buy from people. But if they want to buy from a very serious person, you better be the serious person because it is sales at the end of the day.
That is a great point. I think that's a great point to wrap on. Just people buy from people. read the room, interject your personality, have fun, stay serious when needed. And you know what? We're gonna try this. Let us know down in the comments what your, what is one thing that you got from this conversation. Ryan and I are building this thing together. We're really trying to help those who are listening who want to up their game. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we should talk about. Feel free to reach out. Both of us are very active on LinkedIn. We talk to folks all the time. And we're super excited. I think our YouTube channel has hit over 100 subscribers, which was pretty freaking amazing. And it's awesome to see. And so really happy you guys are here. Any closing words, Ryan, before we depart from episode 3?
I was gonna try to think of a funny joke, but honestly, I don't have one at the given moment. I don't know. If you got funny jokes in sales engineering, toss them our way too. I'd love to hear them because I might want to take one of those jokes and make it my own, just like I said. So, but yeah, drop your comments on how you think the episodes are going. I think we have some interesting episodes coming up that we're pretty excited about. So, if there's anything that you want us to talk about, feel free to reach out to us too. We'll be sure to get that into our agenda for things to talk about. But hopefully, everyone's liking the series so far, and we'll keep it going.
Alrighty. Till next time, everyone. Peace.
Till next time.